Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with your host, Josh Saez. Today I have a very hot episode for you. The 135-pound division is heating up once again. Finally, Devin Haney has decided to engage in a meaningful battle. Right? He has been known as one of the top of the division at 135 pounds. When you think about the 135, you cannot honestly not think about the five kings: Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Tank Davis. Devin Haney, out of the whole bunch, has probably fought the least worthy competition. After Ryan Garcia fought Luke Campbell, you immediately have to propel him over Devin Haney in terms of resume, due to the fact that Devin Haney's most notable opponent is Yuriorkis Gamboa. He also has he shares an opponent with Tank Davis. So it's kind of a refreshing thing. The fight with Linares is finally signed. One thing about Linares, when you look at this fight, people are going to think that Linares can pose some problems for Devin Haney. And normally I would agree with you. However, when it comes to this fight, Linares is not going to be the measuring stick everyone's looking for in order to kind of gauge the skill level of Devin Haney. Devin Haney is and does everything that Linares does better. He's a better counterpuncher. In my opinion, he probably has equal or a little more power than Linares. Linares is not a hard puncher. And in terms of speed, you have to give the fast twitch, slick, athletic Devin Haney the advantage. However, it is a good name, and Linares is a top 10 135 pounder. So I think finally we're going to get the step up fight we're looking for. He's getting paid $3 million for the fight as well, and is showing that he deserves to get paid a hefty sum. It's not the $5 million that Teofimo, maybe even 10 after pay-per-view, etc., that he's going to make. However, it is formidable for Devin Haney to fight someone of Linares' caliber. I hope Linares can turn back the clock, but every time Linares has had to step up, he comes close. You know he's going to show some sort of heart, some sort of grit. But when it comes to this fight, I want to say Linares, I hope he can turn back that clock and really give Devin Haney trouble, but I just don't see it. I think Devin Haney's too sharp with that jab to the body. I think the hands-up guard is going to not really work well against Devin Haney's combo high guard and Philly shell, Mayweather-esque style. He's a really, really good counterpuncher, and if Linares decides to throw punches in volume, I can see Devin Haney tagging him and then using his superior movement to kind of frustrate and make Linares make mistakes. So I'm going to side with Devin Haney on this one. I think it's a good fight, but for the most part, I don't see it going any other way but with Devin Haney. If Linares can test Devin Haney, then we know the truth about him, and we can really just stop the conversations about the five kings, because in all actuality, I'm tired of talking about the five kings, because there's really only one king. We have an undisputed king in Teofimo Lopez. Lomachenko, you can say, had an off night and is still up there, still reigning, but hands down, Tank, Ryan, Devin Haney, until you fight someone of the caliber of a Loma, I don't think you really have a place amongst a king level in a division. You have to fight some people and you have to test yourself, and right now Devin Haney is just like the rest of them. Until he beats Linares, until he beats another high-quality opponent like Lomachenko, you really can't compare him to Teofimo Lopez and Loma. Hopefully, like I said, he does prove us wrong and he has a good performance about when he fights Linares. But in this case, it doesn't really matter, because being Linares isn't going to make you one of the five kings. It'll show that you're a solid opponent. We kind of see that you actually have a live body in front of you, not Yuriorkis Gamboa, who you were supposed to knock out, but you didn't. Sure, it was a dominant performance, and I was actually quite impressed with the performance, because he shut out Gamboa with a dominating display of boxing, which is what you're supposed to do, but it's Gamboa. It was during the pandemic, and I'm just glad he's fighting someone, because if he would have stepped up and fought another no-name, Devin Haney would have been such a joke in terms of branding, because at the end of the day, you're your own promoter. You constantly mention that you're the one moving yourself, and if you move yourself like you're a prospect and not really someone who's a real champion, because on paper you're supposed to be the champion, right? You say you have a belt, but if you're still moving yourself like you're a contender and you're kind of fighting for the championship, you have no one to blame but yourself. You can't blame Bob Arum like Teofimo can. You can't blame Eddie Hearn, like other fighters can. You can't blame Floyd Mayweather like Tank can, because at the end of the day, Devin Haney, you are your own boss. So after Linares, what's next? You have to fight your way into contention, right? One thing I got to say right now, the one that's fighting Teofimo Lopez, the king of the 135-pound division, is George Gambosos. If George Gambosos beats Teofimo Lopez, right, is he the king of the division? Yes. Why? Because he is the undisputed. He would beat the lineal champion at 135. He would have all the belts and have all the cards. If George Gambosos beats Devin Haney, is he the king of the 135-pound division? No. If George Gambosos beats Ryan Garcia, is he the king of the 135-pound division? No. If George Gambosos fights Tank Davis, is he the king of the 135-pound division? No. If George Gambosos were to beat Loma, if he loses to Teofimo, then he could arguably say that, look, he's up there in the division because Loma is a former king and he was and is still a great fighter. So when someone fights you and you don't look as good, right, and you beat them and all of a sudden your name is in a different stratosphere in terms of ranking, then you know you're fighting a quality opponent. You know you're fighting a king of the division. Beating Tank Davis would be a great win for George Gambosos, but you can't sit here and say, oh, he beats Loma. Can't sit here and say he beats Teo. So Devin Haney's in a precarious position because, yeah, you're your own promoter. You're, oh, hey, I make my own moves. You got to talk to your promoter. I write the checks. I send the checks. But if you're not getting the fights, you're still your own promoter. So either you're pricing yourself out and you're insulting other promoters who decide not to do business with you, right? Or you just may protect yourself from the best competition. I think Devin Haney is not going to protect himself after this fight, but I hope not, because I'm not buying it anymore. You're not going to get away with fighting a Gamboa quality level and also call yourself a king. If you want to call yourself a prospect, oh, I'm learning, I'm getting better, no problem. Fight as many Gamboas as you want in order to learn, and it's your career. But you're the one moving your career. You're your own promoter. You need to make your own brand and your own name. And right now, I got to give you a little credit for fighting Linares, but you're still not in the conversation as a five king, as one of the five kings if you beat Linares. Linares has been beaten several times. DeMarco knocked out Linares. Lomachenko made Linares look bad. Cano Pablo beat him up. So Linares has been beaten. He's a solid opponent, but he's not a world beater. You saw Luke Campbell give him a hard fight and they had a draw. I mean, Linares got the win, but at the end of the day, it was close. So Devin Haney, you get a little credit. Just move on. Talking about moving on, and kind of just wanted to touch on something that I thought was a pretty feel-good story, and just to kind of continue on this whole, like, who are you fighting, is a former champion. Devin Haney constantly wants to talk about how, oh, he's a champ and he's this, he's that. But there is actually a former champ who can make a case for feeling left out and feeling kind of slighted. And that's David Benavidez. David Benavidez is fighting this weekend, and after several times where he's lost his belt on the scale or due to some certain substance abuse issues that he had, right? He was a champ. He had it all. He was the darling of PBC. He's a tall, athletic, come-forward fighter who's exciting, throws a bunch of punches, and also can box. David Benavidez knocks people out. He looks for knockouts. He goes for knockouts. He pursues knockouts. And he has wins over notable opponents. Anthony Durrell is no slouch. So David Benavidez is going for it. He was going for it. And then he ran into some issues, some weight issues, some substance abuse issues. However, he does have a somber tone, and I have to sit here and say that I'm actually very proud of David Benavidez. In this fight that he's preparing for, he easily made the weight. There were no concessions that needed to be made. He didn't have to drain himself too much to make the weight. He looked comfortable, and it looked like he put the work in. I've been monitoring David Benavidez on social media and YouTube via the Robert Garcia kind of boxing wave, where you have Ellie Sek back constantly interviewing him. You see him in the streams with Robert Garcia, Mikey Garcia, around those kind of people, which means that he's in the gym getting quality sparring. And the fact that he made weight shows like he's ready. When they talk about the other fighters, David Benavidez has actually accepted and taken accountability for the fact that he squandered his opportunity. He was a champion, and he let weight get in the way. He also let other issues get in the way. So the fact that he's showing some sort of remorse and almost regret for what happened shows that he's growing as a person, and I think it's making him grow as a fighter. You see him putting in the preparation. He realizes now that being a champion wasn't a foregone conclusion. It's not something that just happens. You have to put the work in, and when you are a champion, you have to maintain your championship quality habits. You have to continue to learn. You have to continue to be professional, and you have to continue to put your foot on the gas, because when you're the champion, now everyone that was gunning for the champion, right, is gunning for you. You are the gunned after. You are the person that the person's going to show up for an extra session, put that extra mile in, put that extra work in to beat. You're the king of the hill. Now you're defending your title. You're not fighting for the title. Winning the title may happen, but continuing to win and constantly defending your title is the hard part. And especially when you have people that are very motivated to beat you, you have to show up. And now Devin Benavidez is one of those people that are hungry, and he's going after the Canelos of the world, the Plants of the world. He wants to go after the champions. And the one thing I did like was when they asked him about Canelo Alvarez, of course, David Benavidez said that he is someone he wants to fight, and he feels like he could give Canelo his hardest fight. And upon looking at it, I think him and Canelo would be a very good fight. You have someone that throws a lot of punches, someone who's not afraid to fight on the inside, and someone that's going to put it on Canelo whether he wins or loses. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to beat Canelo, because I have to look at that fight and see more or less how David Benavidez is still fighting, because at the end of the day, speculation and potential is one thing. To see them fight and see how they are currently in terms of form is another thing. So I think that is a spectacular fight, but I like the fact that David Benavidez said this. He mentioned that he has to earn the Canelo shot. The Canelo shot is not something that he is earning right now. He wants to fight Caleb Plant. He wants to fight his way into a Canelo shot, and I think he's going to do it. I really do. I'm not sure what's going to happen after Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo, because that fight's going to happen, and that fight, you can pick someone, and you could arguably say they're going to win, but who does Caleb Plant fight before that? Are they just going to let Caleb Plant rest, or will they put David Benavidez in with Caleb Plant? I don't know, because and in terms of PBC's stance, David Benavidez is a PBC fighter. So if he fights Caleb Plant, they're still going to get a stake in the Canelo sweepstakes. I get Caleb Plant's position because he's the champion. Why should he fight David Benavidez when it could be a bigger fight if he's undisputed champion, beats Canelo? He gets the biggest payday of his life. So why would he squander that by fighting David Benavidez? So who knows? But the fact that he's saying he needs to earn the shot is showing maturity and showing that he's growing as a person and potentially as a fighter. I think he knows that the opportunity to be a champion, especially when you have someone like Canelo who's looking to unify the championship. Back then, people were buying into the hype that the belts don't mean anything. I agree. And I think Mayweather set the tone saying that belts don't really make the person. But you also got to remember, Mayweather was beating everybody. There was no doubt about him being the best. Unfortunately, right now, there's so many good title holders. You have to fight for the belts to show who's the man in the division. And right now, David Benavidez doesn't have a strap, because if he did, he would get the Canelo shot, which ultimately would lead to his biggest payday. But the fact that he shows that he's hungry and needs to fight his way back up, I like that. And I think he's going to come back and kind of figure it out. So that's the episode for today. Feel free to watch this episode on YouTube if you're interested, at Good Boxing Podcast. On Instagram, feel free to leave a like, share the podcast. It really, really helps. And if you can like this video, share it with your friends, or subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful day out here in New York, and I hope you enjoy your day. Be well.